to Ari's channel. My name is Ari. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than the ones I usually do. I try my best not to get too political in videos because I do realize that everyone has different political views and I don't want to turn anyone off from the channel because politics is really not what this channel is about. But there are times when the politics become personal. And when there are attacks against the LGBT community, and especially the trans community, then it is a personal thing, especially to me and millions of other people. So today I'll be talking a little bit on politics. I do have notes, which you see, and please overlook the notes. I know that reading from notes is bad public speaking, but in this case, I wanted to make sure I had everything right according to what I wanted to say. I won't read them verbatim, but there are parts where I pretty much will. So bear with me, but if you see the notes, that's what it's for. So, talking in politics, I can't help but mention Donald Trump. And, I still remember when Trump was running for office, one of the things that he said was that he was going to be the best candidate for the LGBT community. Now, I don't mind telling you, I didn't believe him then, and I didn't support him then. But it's one of those things where I would have happily been proven wrong. I haven't been proven wrong on that one. Millions of Americans weren't proven wrong. He turned out to be every bit as bad as we thought, and actually a little bit worse than I had anticipated. So let's talk about that a bit. So from day one, his advisors were some of the biggest, it was basically a who's who of homophobia and transphobia. People like Michelle Bachmann, whose husband runs a conversion therapy clinic. Ben Carson, look up some of his statements. Rick Perry, Tony Perkins, who is a leader of the Family Research Council, a terribly anti-LGBT religious group. Sam Brownback, and then do I even need to mention Jeff Sessions? So these people aren't just your run-of-the-mill Republicans, like I said. These are some of the most vile anti-LGBT politicians and public figures in the nation. And they served as advisors, cabinet members, appointees, and confidants of the president. So anyway, when it comes right down to it, I don't give a damn about your political party. Couldn't care less if you consider yourself a Republican, a Democrat, an independent. None of that matters. But what I do care about is civil rights. I care about our community being targeted based on someone's antiquated bigotries. I care about LGBT people being treated as second-class citizens. The message that's being put out there right now speaks not only to the LGBT community and to trans people, but also to the bigots, to the people who have this hatred and violence in them. And it tells them that they're justified in what they believe. They're justified in their own bigotries. To the LGBT people, especially the people who happen to be the most vulnerable in our community, which would be, transgender folk who are, children or teens, it tells them you're never going to be accepted for who you are. That you'll never be loved and you'll never be a part of this society. And that's also incredibly frightening. So let me talk about a little bit of the reasoning for this rant. Overlook the phone, I'm not answering it. So since Trump has come into office, the following have occurred. First, the number of hate crimes jumped shortly after the election because the attackers, the bigots, finally felt like that they were justified in what they were doing and what they believed. The Trump administration had given them that feeling, that belief. Trump has appointed vile transphobic and homophobic people to the Supreme Court. This would be Neil Gorsuch, for a lifetime appointment. And, I can't tell you how important the Supreme Court is to the LGBT community because everywhere else, when people talk about put it to a vote, our civil rights shouldn't be put to a vote of people who may or may not like us. It should be based on the Constitution and rights that were already guaranteed. With Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, that puts us at extreme risk as cases come up. Trump has filled his cabinet and other positions within the government with people who hold anti-LGBT views. The Trump administration has rescinded the Obama-era guidance that gave transgender students protections in our public school system. The Trump administration has attempted to dismantle Obamacare. That gets passed over as an LGBT issue a lot of the time, but it really is important to people desperate within our community for health care. AIDS and HIV is still a thing, and people still need, affordable treatment for that. But then also within the trans community, if you're in the process of transitioning, medical care is an absolute necessity. And unfortunately, the trans community also has one of the highest unemployment rates, which is where people usually get their health insurance from, as a result of workplace discrimination. So Donald Trump himself gave direction to the military to stop allowing transgender people to enlist, to end all planned trans surgeries or medical procedures for trans service members, and to ultimately kick out trans service members. That may not have happened yet, but it's down the pike at this point. It's under, they're reviewing it on how to implement it. The Trump administration signed on to an amicus brief for an upcoming Supreme Court case. And that Supreme Court case is one of those right to discriminate cases. It's another, homophobic baker who doesn't want to have to sell to the LGBT community, even though he runs a public business. The Trump administration, the Trump Department of Justice has just issued a directive stating that the position of the government and every government agency is that the Civil Rights Act of 1964, I believe, does not apply to LGBT people. It doesn't apply to sexual orientation. It doesn't apply to gender identity when it talks about sex, which is the way it's been interpreted in the past, and that is actually what case law says. But they are now saying that in any legal case where someone is dealing with workplace discrimination, that the government has to take the side that that discrimination against LGBT people is permissible. And it is specifically, a lot of it does talk about hiring and about employment, making it clear that employers have the right to fire somebody based on their orientation or gender identity, which is just disgusting. So that isn't everything that's happened, but that's a hell of a list for someone who claims that they're going to be a friend to the LGBT community. That's the actions of someone with a profound animus against our community, profound hatred against our community. See, right now we're dealing with a barrage of hateful legislation in the state governments, of policies, of positions. It's probably the worst in the modern era that are coming up. Not all past, but many are coming up. And we can't afford to be quiet at this point. We can't afford to be silent and uninvolved as this administration attempts to rip out our rights, our personhood, and ultimately us from the national fabric of America. At the end of the video, I'm going to put up a slide that'll have a 1-800 number, or I think it's 1-800, maybe 888, I don't know. I'll put it up at the end. That's a toll-free number, and it's going to give you a way to easily connect to your senators, your representatives, to let them know that, as the phrase is, we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. To let them know that when our community is maligned, attacked, disenfranchised, that yes, it has repercussions for us, but it's also going to have repercussions for them when we step into the voting booth. To let them know that the trans community, the LGBT community, does vote, that we do have people who are supporting us, and that we are going to get our voice to be heard so that they can either stand with us or we're going to do everything we can to put them out of office at the voting booth. Um, the homophobic and transphobic policies, positions, and legislation aren't just a threat to trans rights, they're a threat to trans lives. We know that when the trans community, when you're dealing with trans youth or even the elderly, when they feel like that they aren't accepted, when they feel like that they are the outcast, that they'll never be loved, that they'll never be, appreciated and respected for who they are, the suicide rate is considerably higher. So here's the message, and I wrote this down. I'm going to read it. You know, um, don't lose hope. We're a strong, robust, vibrant community. Our community has seen more than its fair share of violence, hate, and discrimination. They've tried to knock us down, but we're resilient. We are still standing. An orange blowhard, and yes, I mean that against our president, and an aggressive, hostile, bigoted administration will not keep us down. We are Americans, and we will not be silenced or erased. Justice and liberty will continue to march on. So thank you for watching. If you haven't already done so, please take a moment and click the subscribe button at the bottom. Also, remember to give the video a thumbs up, leave your comments. Just let us know what you think. I know the videos that are political can be a bit of a turnoff for some people, and if you didn't like the video, then I apologize that you didn't enjoy it. But please look at some of the other videos. They're not all politics, but this was something that I didn't feel that I could avoid talking about, that I didn't think we had an ability to be quiet about. So I use the format I have to speak up. You can either watch it or you don't have to. Either way, thank you for coming to the channel. I hope that you'll subscribe and leave whatever thoughts you have. Don't forget the number that I posted that I will post at least right after this. And again, a quote from the amazing Kesha: "Don't let the bastards get you down. Be you." Bye.